Karen Berg is a leader and founder, with her late husband Rav Berg, of the Kabbalah Centre, which is an international location. Karen and her husband Rav Berg set out to make the Kabbalah Centre more understandable. Beginning with a single location, they grew the center into one of the world's leading sources of spiritual wisdom. And sitting down with Karen was a real pleasure in order to talk about the principles that form a life of value and spiritual worth. Take a listen.
This is a Religica production. Religica.
Could you just say a word first about the history of the center?
The Kabbalah Centre is about 40 years old. Basically, it's the tenets of the Old Testament giving to the people the ability to understand the whys of why we're here, why we're born into the family. We are the whys of the world. And the word itself, Kabbalah, means to receive. So how do we receive nourishment, spiritual nourishment, in a way that is fulfilling for us? And it's a philosophy, a way of teaching that allows people, affords people an insight into why they were put on this earth in the first place. And it's non-denominational, and it is a philosophy. It's a philosophical study rather than, if you will, a religious study.
That distinction between philosophy and religion is an important one, don't you think, in an age we live in? Some might call it a post-denominational age, however you describe it. Why do you see that as an important distinction?
I say that because in our centers globally, we have people from every race and religion across the board, thousands of them with each other, and we're a community. Each place we are, we have a community of people in acceptance of each other, regardless of where they're from or who they are. And that's why I think it's very, very different, because we don't ask people to become different. You should be a better Catholic, you could be a better Jew, you could be a better Muslim. What we simply do is try to give you tools that will let you see life in a different way, allow you to take the spiritual aspirations that you have, because oftentimes religion and spirituality sort of get mixed up, like if you want to learn purpose or why you were born into the family that you were born into, or whatever it might be, there are ways of getting there. There are tools that help you, to take care of anger issues, whatever it is. There are such tools that can be combined with your religious practice, and both of them can align each other.
Could you give an example of a couple of those tools that when people are asking about Kabbalah, you can say, this is essential to our fundamental core teaching?
Well, I'll give you something that's, I think, fairly simple for people to understand. And that is, let's assume that you have a guest in your home and you feed them and you clothe them and you give them, and they have to do nothing for it, nothing about it. They just simply have to be. The eventuality is that person is going to resent you. Why? Because the basics of the human being is that we must at least do an effort to receive something. Because the original part, we say the creator, he constantly wants to share. He wants to give of himself. But in the origin of the creation of that first vessel, the vessel was part of the creator, and turned to the creator and said, hey, wait. I also need to have a part of me that can share back. I can't just take from you. And it says at that point, the light of the creator moved back, meaning allowing this newly formed vessel now to be able to share. So it is a primary purpose in our life that in order to receive anything, there must be a sort of an effort. And this is a very important point for parents, because oftentimes what parents do is, go take the car. Go out. Here's the money, you go. What do you do for it? So what happens eventually? They begin either to resent or not appreciate, because the basic tenet of this philosophy, or I think most people understand, is that you must have a way to earn that which you receive. Because if you don't, then you don't have appreciation. So oftentimes when we teach this particular part, parents go, oh, that's what I did, and they come to you and they say, what am I going to do? My child is doing this and doing that. How old is your child? 19. Start when he's 3.
Right. This point about resentment's interesting as well to me when I think about whether we value the nature of wisdom itself today, for instance, and what role does wisdom have as a response to resentment? Or even if we earn wisdom, what are your thoughts on wisdom whether it's needed?
Well, I think actually that wisdom is a combination between intellect and heart.
Okay.
You know, and I kind of think you don't get there until you're older and you can see the picture. We have intelligence. Okay, that's one thing. But wisdom is a very different thing. And what does it say? Who is a wise man? He that is happy with what he has, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of life lessons for us to get to that place.
We have to be able to look back enough to be able to see the horizon of our future. It's an irony, isn't it, of our humanity that usually by the time we acquire that, we may have more limited future than we would like certainly to have.
Exactly. I think that the Creator made a mistake. He should have made it backwards.
That would be, youth is wasted on the young, right? Is also an adage associated with it.
Exactly.
What do you think in terms of the light of the Creator? What is at the core of that light for us that you see is so important today where we are 20 years into the 21st century? What is about that light that's essential for the world today?
Well, listen, it's only my view, but I believe that if every human being is part of the spark of the Creator. That's our view. Each one of us are mini cosm of the Creator, right? So if we act as the Creator, then things should be as a Creator. And what happens is that people do not act as the Creator, so there's negativity that happens. I mean, even the darkest room, if you light a match, in the physical sense, you have light.
Yeah.
And basically, I don't think people realize that they are actually a creative force inside themselves. And it's our kindnesses or our things that we do that project what happens, we believe, projects what happens in our lives. And oftentimes things do happen, they're life lessons, and they're learned by challenges. Mm-hmm. As I said before, no pain, no gain. You go to a gym, you understand that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to your spirituality, no, that should be a given. No, it's not true. There are challenges, and those challenges make you stronger, or teach you a lesson, or you learn from them, or you grow up the ladder, or you don't.
There's a kind of muscularity to spirituality. It's like a muscle. We have to exercise spirituality, but we often think of spirituality as this esoteric, unapproachable, it just comes with me. But I hear you saying something quite different about how we should tend to our own spirituality.
Absolutely. When I say I don't say I believe that spirituality is something that is ingrained in every human being in the fact that each one of us has a spark of the Creator. Meaning, if you want to be that person, you have to walk the talk. And if you don't walk the talk, sometimes life starts to teach you the lessons. It pushes you back on the path and pushes you back. And then the eventuality is, okay, this guy doesn't get it. Take him back. He starts all over again.
That's a disappointment of a lifetime, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then,
what happens is grace also a part of this? Like, mercy, let's say, or how do I forgive myself? Is that a part of the Kabbalah teaching, or how would you refer to that?
I really think, okay, we believe that things happen for a purpose. Okay. So if I was an alcoholic, or I was a drug addict, and I did terrible things, I stole money out of the house, whatever it is, and then I managed to get myself better, then I'm thankful for where I was, because in that road is what got me to now my participation in a more higher spiritual development. So it isn't a question of forgiving what happened, but understanding that what happened was part of my process to bring me to where I am now, so that I become, in a way, and it may sound a bit strange, but if I needed to go on that path to get where I am, then I'm grateful that I was able to pass that challenge. Okay? And I do forgive myself, of course, because I now understand that I can go better and do better. And by the way, I do believe that the only real answer after the 12 steps, is spirituality.
Yeah. That's the beginning and the end of our lives, spirituality.
We believe that we were created to take that spark of light that the Creator has given to us, and our job is to bring it back And we can't just bring it back, but we have to go through the life challenges, the roles that we take, the things that we do, to sort of clean off what the karma is, or however you choose to call it, from other lifetimes and situations, and be able to be capable of bringing that soul, that part of the soul, back to the Creator in wholeness. So that's the idea.
We live in a culture now that seems to be ensconced with celebritization. We love celebrities. We often measure our lives according to them. With the millions of people that have come through the Kabbalah Centre, a number of those have also been celebrities. That's been a part of it. How do you respond to those celebrities and to a general sense of celebritization in us about how we follow authentically our own way, irrespective of where we are in the world?
Oftentimes people look at a celebrity and basically they see the persona. Mm-hmm. They don't see the person, right? And celebrities are just like you and I. They have the same problems with their family and their kids, and the same problems that we face. The only difference is that they have the power, perhaps, in the voice to establish something for people. And, oftentimes we've been chided for that. It's a blessing and a curse.
Right.
There are people that say, well, if X comes to the Kabbalah Center, then I can't go there because it's pop. Mm-hmm. And then some other people say, wow, if that person is there, then maybe I should see what it's about. So it's a blessing and a curse in a way.
Rav Shimon Bar Yochai.
Okay, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a Kabbalist that lived at the time of the Second Temple. He is supposedly the author of the Zohar, which is the book of the main text of Kabbalistic teachings. And there are other people that think that it was Moses de Leon when it was found in Spain. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the person, we believe was the person that actually was able to take the interpretation and put it into written form. Okay. The book called the Zohar, which is the main text of Kabbalistic teaching, Zohar means light. And basically, the text can be very difficult. And so what we've done is we've sort of brought it down a notch, did an English translation of that Zohar. And the word itself, if you pick up the Zohar and read it, you'll get something from it. And if I pick it up and I'll get something, somebody else. So it's the way each person to his own capacity to learn the teachings of the Zohar. And he was a great Tana in his time. He actually lived the same time as Jesus. Okay. And there's a whole story about whether there's a person that learned with him by the name of Ben Jesse. We don't know who it was or if it was, but they actually lived at the same time. Mm-hmm. And it would be interesting to do the correlation.
It would.
But Rabbi Shimon himself was also hidden in the cave for 13 years because the Romans were about to kill him. They wanted to kill all of those people at that time.
Yeah, that was the time.
And he came out of the cave and was able to transmit this knowledge. That's who Rabbi Shimon was.
A lot of the audience for this are students in undergrad, graduate programs, but also, as you mentioned, across the religious spectrum. And one of the things I like to ask when we're having these kinds of conversations is how those influencers like yourself feel about the kind of one or two questions that we really have to ask ourselves today about going forward on the planet. Often these can be spiritually minded or otherwise. I just like to leave that open-ended. If you could just take a moment and say, these two questions we have to keep in front of us. So, for instance, one of mine might be, do we still trust in the nature of hope in the world? Does hope have purchase in the world? Or do we still believe that we have a destiny of some kind? Is that essential for us? Mm-hmm. How do you answer that kind of question?
Well, I think that God has a plan, and that we're part of it. The spark, which we call the soul, that He gave us, will eventually go back to Him. But whether we complete it through our efforts in this lifetime or 3 lifetimes from now, that's a different story. So I definitely believe that there is a sum total to this universe, and it does have rhyme and meaning, even though we see, awful things. But those awful things are tantamount to look at the beauty that's created in the world, I mean, I see, as you do see, we do see the negative in the world, but the positive is just as great or perhaps even greater.
And beauty, you name beauty itself, is one of those elements, seems without which humanity just disperses. We need beauty.
Yes, sure.
And we need it, seems, both within ourselves and in the external world. We're somehow also sharing that. Is the nature of God one of beauty at its core?
Absolutely. The nature of God is absolute beauty at its core. And I believe that that's why we have to have acceptance for each person. Because he's within us. Yeah. Whatever we believe in, whoever we are. That's the whole concept of global spirituality.
Another question sometimes we receive is, does God have a sense of humor? Now, that may be an odd question to ask, but...
When I look at some people together, I go, wow, he must have a... Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, people ask me, well, how come you're talking about global spirituality? I mean, you were the Kabbalah Centre. Because within the centers, we see thousands of people. And once a year, we can get together with 3,000 people, one from Nigeria and the other one from Nairobi and somebody from Texas and somebody from... And they get together and they hug each other and they look at each other. And I think, in my crazy mind of mine, this is the way the world needs to be. They can be who... I believe people need to stay who they are. We don't want to convert anybody to anything. But they can be better at acceptance and non-judgmentalism. And I think that's vital for our world today.
I recently interviewed the conductor of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and I asked him at the end of a 2-hour, 3-hour time with, say, thousands of people in the audience, I said, when you turn around and look at them, what do you hope that they're taking away? What do you hope that they're feeling, or that's generative, not just for individuals, but as you mentioned, we're all sparks in sharing that experience too. I've seen you in presentations where there's thousands of people in front of you. What is your hope for them? Because you're definitely connecting with them. What are you hoping they'll take away with them when they leave that room?
Me, I would like to know that they would, I can really feel that.
Yeah.
That's very important. Not me, but that.
Yeah. And what is that?
Well, I give them something that makes them connect to their own energy. And they say, I can feel that, or I can connect to that. That to me is beautiful. When people come and say, thank you for giving me an insight on something I really think about.
You've been listening to Religica. Visit us at www.religica.org.